Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the 420.in. I am Shashank, editor of the website, and today we are joined by Adhi Pramesh and Shivraj Harsha, who are co-founder of Trust Checker. And these people at Trust Checker are making sure that our internet browsing is safer and secured. So welcome, sir, to the 420.in.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot, thanks a lot for the introduction.
So, sir, we would want to know that how, because internet is full of knowledge and resource, but with growing number of cybercrime cases, there is a trust deficit. So you at Trust Checker, how you guys are building that trust among the people and corporate?
Thanks a lot. So, at Trust Checker, so our mission is to eliminate digital frauds from the face of earth, right? So, with this in thought process and in mind, so we have productized the entire offerings for both consumers and businesses both together. For example, in today's digital world, lots of people are coming online thanks to COVID, and lots of people are doing financial transactions online. So this means that lots of people have chances of getting scammed. So very recently we have seen the instances of Delhi CM's daughter getting scammed as well. So think about like people like my father and yours, right? So who are coming online for the first time. To really enable the safer and trusted transactions, so we have built Trust Checker. Before they make payments to any stranger, they can come and check on Trust Checker to understand how the frauds, the score which actually talks about like if there are any fraud instances on that phone number or stuff like that. So in fact, like in India, 60% of the frauds are originating from top six cities: Kolkata, Guwahati, uh, Patna, Chandigarh, Jaipur, etc. So which means like we have inculcated all the specific parameters into our algorithm so that like whenever a person is doing a transaction with a stranger, they can come on Trust Checker and check for trust score and be safe. And coming to organizations face lots of synthetic identity fraud at the stage of onboarding. Right here, our Trust Checker algorithm enables them to really understand the trust score of every single customer whom they are onboarding, and then they can try to manually review those customers. So this is how we are doing. So with business side, we have done around 60 lakh trust checks till date with large number of corporates in India. So with the consumer side, we are collecting anywhere between like 5,000 to 6,000 fraud data points every single day. We have amassed around 15 lakh fraudsters data into our system. So which we have a huge database. Our consumer facing website is free, and anyone can go ahead and use it from today. So yeah.
So, sir, can you just tell us quickly tell us that what is the most common type of fraud, yet or top five kind of frauds you have seen so far since you have been operational since 2018? So, can you just highlight those?
Yeah. So let me start with the consumer facing side. So in consumer facing side, three or four kinds of frauds are leading the pack. In fact, so social engineering frauds, which people try to like pose nice. So this is like top fraud. Inside this, identity fraud is like one of the topmost fraud data points. Fraud kind of things what people do, they pose themselves as army men, they pose themselves as like, I have a very urgent need of buying your product on different marketplaces. These kind of frauds are like really high. The second kind of fraud is QR scams. They send like a send request by, I mean, send money request once or twice, and like instead of like you people send, I mean, receiving money, they end up sending money to that same person. This is the second biggest fraud bucket what we have seen internally. And third thing is, we have seen in fact like one specific phone number is used multiple times to fraud people, in fact as high as 12 times, which we have seen on like multiple payment gateways. So this is the third kind of fraud which people typically send money. The fourth kind of fraud is KYC fraud. सर आपका एक्सपायर हो गया, लाइक आपको हमको कॉल कर लीजिए, like this is the biggest, another biggest bucket of fraud which we have seen in our systems, where people come and report as well. So these are the majority of frauds what we have seen.
On an average, same phone number used around 6 times before it's been switched. Maybe it is like switched or um, at a later stage, or periodically in periodic intervals, the same phone number is used. But on an average, we have seen that same phone number is used 6 times to fraud a person.
Sir, as you said that one number is used multiple times for committing a crime. So do you have a suggestion for telecom operators or law enforcement agencies that how to keep a check on such numbers or the for fraudulent numbers or fraudulent website which are indulged into such activities?
So this is where we come in terms of bridging the gap. Uh, what we have done is a collation of data across various multiple sites. At the same time, we have our own proprietary data, where using which we are giving a proprietary score, which will actually give a history of a particular person's activity. If there is any sort of a fraud associated with particular email ID or a phone number. So what we tell telecom operators is it to check if there is a possibility of history, if there is a history of fraud in with this particular um, phone number. And how do we do that is by collating multiple data points, and we arrive at a score which indicates the possibility of a fraud associated with particular number. So what is more important over here is to see how we can prevent these frauds happening right at the time of occurrence, rather than wait for the fraud to happen and then take a corrective action for that.
Yeah. In fact, prevention is always better than cure, right? So the prevention is trust checker here.
Right, right. I got it. So, sir, you also spoke about synthetic identity theft, and this is also growing at a very rapid pace. So,
Mhm.
can you just explain it to our audience what exactly it is and how is it impacting them?
Yeah, sure, sure. So synthetic identity fraud is like a multi-billion dollar industry across the globe. So here people create like fake email addresses or temporary email addresses to really identify or authenticate their existence on the digital world. Similarly, people use wiped phone numbers or like discarded phone numbers to really make sure they call that person, they scam that person, then they are away from that, right? So in fact, like people also use lots of data which is being available on the deep web as well, where people hack the system and they put it on the deep web. So these are the three major sources of like how a synthetic identity fraud is created. Once the synthetic identity fraud is created, so that specific ID is used to create an account on like multiple other platforms, on payment apps, or like on financial systems, etc. So then they get access to an account, then they use that synthetic identity to scam people, and once they scam like 5 or 6 people on average, they kind of like discard those identities. So this is how a synthetic identity is kind of like generated and used, and it's discarded. So this is very very so creating an account on Gmail is a simple thing, right? Creating, in fact, like creating a temporary email addresses to get an OTPs is also a very simple thing. Buying a phone number online is as easy as like 10 clicks away. So you do like certain steps, you get like a VoIP phone number, then they use it to like do whatever you want. So basically people use all these technologically advanced methodologies to create synthetic identities and then try to scam like innocent victim people. So that's how synthetic identities are getting created at very high level. So there are more ways where people use the leaked PAN numbers, the leaked phone numbers, etc. as well. They kind of like interrupt the OTP in the middleman attacks and they get the OTP. So there are multiple ways people use synthetic identities to really scam people, in fact.
Thank you, sir. And you also spoke about deep web, and there was also a mention of deep fake. So,
Yeah, yeah.
how India is getting impacted by data which is leaked on deep web, and how
Yeah.
deep fake, which is very difficult to identify these days, how this is
Mhm.
impacting people of India.
Sure, sure, sure. So with deep web, so we have seen like lots of big companies like Equifax, or like even very recently, large companies also getting their data leaked. So once the data is leaked, there are 4 to 5 parameters of the data is typically leaked, right? Email address, phone number, address, physical address of the people, like all the some of the apps which do collect, and passwords. Sometimes it's kept in the encrypted format, sometimes it's in the open format. So once like all these data points are leaked and available freely on the web, so actually fraudsters use this data to really go ahead and log into the systems and or try to like use it to create new accounts. So in fact, like one of the use cases what we have seen with one of the fintechs, we have seen as high as 15% of the users they are onboarding, they are fake or fraud, which is then collected from like multiple other places. So hence, like this is a very serious problem for any corporate to really tackle, or any end users like us who wants to transact with a stranger to really tackle and put an end to this. So yeah, so any solution in the market, it can't be 100% foolproof. Like 90 to 95% of the cases, if it can solve, so it can actually reduce the number of people getting scammed. So coming to the deep fake, right? So this is super interesting. So they use lots of AI models to really create multiple versions of a face or multiple actions of a face, etc. So lots of these deep fake photographs or videos. So I mean, at two levels it's used. The first level is they kind of use like large celebrity to really promote a very bad message into the society, or like to really put like hormonal piece into stake, and then they try to create the videos. This operates at like emotional and psychological level of the users. And this a country like India, I mean, like getting involved themselves involved in deepfake is a very serious problem. So in the fintech industry where we operate, people create like deepfake photographs or deepfake liveness test photos or videos where the KYC happens at like these levels. So here, so it passes through the system, but ultimately it's a photographs which never exists or the video which never exists, which means that a fake onboarding of a user happens there, and fintechs or banks might end up giving loans to these people. So for example, so me and Shivraj, our faces are mapped, and like a new face is created, and we use that face to really do the KYC with the liveness test on a mobile lending app, right? So like imagine the steps which takes, and like imagine like the kind of video which we create, and the how we can actually create like a live video of ourselves, mashed photographs of both of us, and then try to pass the KYC test. So I mean, so currently it's not a very high number, but like with these technologies I mean, penetrating deeply into the hands of all the scamsters, what we have already seen till date, I think it's going to be a very serious problem going forward.
So these software and apps becoming more accessible, where you can actually go and morph things. And we're also seeing a large number of cases where um, a picture or image is morphed into a nude image, and online extortion is happening. So, what is a possible solution do you see? Should these apps be banned, or there should be some regulation, or there should be some KYC to it? So, what is the possible solution do you see for keeping a check on the usage?
Sure,
No,
sure.
KYC actually establishes the physical identity of a person. Like today with with Aadhaar being adopted vastly, it establishes the physical identity of the person. But any company which is usually specific with specific fintechs, whenever they're onboarding on their platform, they're typically onboarding using either an email ID or a phone number. Only then at a later stage the KYC process kicks in. So what we say is, even when you're onboarding a customer, you have absolutely no clue whether this particular ID that you're a customer you're onboarding using these and digital identities, are these digital identities valid or not? So right at the time of onboarding, TrustCheckr gives a solution which says, yes, this person is valid, and yes, this person is not valid. If valid, why? If not valid, why? So what we say is, right at the time of onboarding, use TrustCheckr to know the person, know the kind of people you're onboarding, and then go for KYC checks. So we come one step ahead. KYC typically establishes the physical identity of a person, as I said previously, but there is no way for you to know if the digital identity of the person and the physical identity of the person you're onboarding is one and the same. I'll give you a simple example. So company onboards me on onboards anybody on their platform, and we get a typically what happens, we get OTP. So when they're onboarding for all the KYC purpose, I can give my documents, and for digital identities, I can give Adib's documents, Adib's identities. Whenever an OTP is sent, that OTP is shared. Adib will share that if Adib and I are in hand in glove, Adib will share that OTP with me, and and it's verified from a company's point of view. It's a perfectly verified, genuine customer that you're onboarding on your platform.
Right.
So what the only solution for this is to have multiple checks at multiple levels. One is have KYC checks through Aadhaar. You are having that, and then you want to have your multiple checks for digital identities. And one way to do that is with TrustCheckr, and you basically come up with multiple layers of checks at various levels. Even with the video KYC being vastly adopted, is being quickly adopted. There's another problem as what we spoke of previously, the deep fakes. I'm not sure how equipped that video KYCs are there today to detect the deep fakes.
Right.
Adib, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, so I think with TrustCheckr, so basically, okay, so with TrustCheckr, so in place, so typically a deep fake creating person, so they also create like a fake digital identity, which we will kind of like catch hold at the stage of onboarding itself. So suggestion for like all these companies, like for example, all the companies who are really focused on reducing the fraud problem. So at the stage, everything starts from a phone number and email address. We will tell you if it's genuine or not, so which solves like most of the problems which occurs at the further stages of the funnel of theirs. So hence trust solutions like TrustCheckr will become important. Once they cross that, so then the other solutions like Aadhaar, PAN, like other checks will take its own place.
So what we saw recently was a lot of instant loan app. They played havoc. People lost their money, some lost their life. So how do you check if such a scheme or such a policy or such a company is valid or not? So how exactly it works, and how somebody can check it and verify if these are legit business?
Okay, so with business coming into picture, so lots of these NBFCs, they were operating with someone who had NBFC license, but the kind of charges which they were charging were exorbitant, right? So I mean, like some of them were charging in the name of processing fee lots of money, which is like 5%, 6%, 7%, 10% of the loan money, and lots of them were so basically the fine print was not really clearly readable for the end consumers, and they were just taking loans left, right, and center. So what it did was it was pushing all the consumers who were taking loan into the vicious cycle of paying the interest and not paying the money which they had borrowed. So it kept on increasing to such a place where people had to give up. And like these collection agents, they used to call them like once in like every hour, and they used to really piss them off. So with these things in place, what we suggest the consumers is like really read the fine prints, processing fee. The second thing is like pre-closure charges. What are the terms to it? What is the rate of interest? And the repayment terms. So these are the four things they should be really aware of before they actually take a loan. Once they take a loan, so basically they should get everything in writing or the email from the company, so that they'll be very assured of like they're not. So coming to the legality of these companies, right? So these companies were operating. So in India, like they have to partner with a company who has an NBFC license. That's the only way those guys can actually lend money, or else like they can't really affect their CIBIL scores or anything for that matter. So in fact, like what we think is like they were operating it with the help of all the NBFCs, but the collection practices are like really very, very bad, and the kind of processing charges and other charges which they are charging were really exorbitant. So so I think RBI should come up with regulations with upper limit for all these very specific charges and make it very, very transparent pricing methodology and transparent repayment methodology so that these people will be like really aware. And yeah,
The
some
need
of
of the need of the hour is better regulation by RBI, and they should make it mandatory for the companies to disclose everything beforehand and not hide anything. And some of the companies what we came across saw that they were not giving two hoots to the regulations. In fact, they were sharing the they were sharing the details of the loan transaction with the other contact persons or the person when so they were not giving two hoots to the regulations. So RBI needs to step up and they need to make some and take stringent actions against such companies.
Right. So, from a consumer point of view, I would like to ask you, if suppose I'm getting a job offer, or say suppose I'm looking at some advertisement on Instagram which is selling something, and if I want to verify if these are legit seller, this is legit job, or these are not a con artist. So we should go to your site, which is Trust Check, and put the email ID or the number through which I'm making the payment to verify if the person is legit or not, right? Is that the thing?
correct, absolutely, yes, yes. So before you engage with a financial transaction with a stranger whom you met online for the first time, please go ahead and check on Trust Checker. And the second thing as well, if you have come across any frauds, or if you feel like anything wrong with that specific digital identity, or if you have got scammed, you can report it on Trust Checker, and the others on on the platform can make the best use of it. So both the things are definitely possible with Trust Checker.
So, do you also have you also seen something like due to personal vendetta, somebody is flagging someone's number or email ID as fraud, or somebody is just blocking it or flagging it that these are scammers, and but they are not. So in that case, what exactly you do?
Sure. So that's a great question. So in fact, so whenever they want to report a person as a fraud, so they have to undergo like certain number of checks as a user. So like we have all the checks and balances in place to really not make sure this vendetta is taking the seat. So there are like other data sources as well. So lots of companies, they do share the fraud data points with us. So some of the marketplaces have shared, and like we also go ahead and look into these fraud data points on places like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, which are available publicly. If I get scammed, typically if I get scammed on like any payment app, so I go and post it on their Twitter page. In fact, I kind of like mark their CEOs and like post a tweet. So can you please help me out here? So these kind of places we also get the fraud data and update in our database in real time. And lots of companies whom we work with also do share the fraud data. And like all the other places where people are doing with vendetta reasons, so I mean like we don't give like lots of weightage to all those data points. So all the checks and balances are in place, so we have built a significantly foolproof system to handle all these edge cases.
Multiple scenarios, yeah.
So my mobile number shows 75%. So is it good enough or is it not that good enough? And if suppose somebody's mobile is 50%, so
Yeah.
what do they do to increase this number, the trust factor, to increase the trust factor?
So I mean, so 70. So first of all, congrats! You are a trustworthy person on the platform. So if it's 50, means like we don't have enough data points on that specific digital identity. So we mark it as neutral. So typically, if the trust scores are less than 40, which means that they have to be really assured of dealing with this person. So these are the three broader buckets of how we differentiate Trust Checker. So if you want to increase your trust score, so currently as a Trust Checker, so we are focused on eliminating frauds. So anything less than 40 means like you shouldn't really transact with that person. So going forward, like with all the business phone numbers and stuff like that, so we'll involve like a huge verification procedures to make sure like to come up with a plan how our business can increase their trust score on our platform. But currently we are focused on eliminating digital frauds online.
You're right. So, can you just also highlight about the new Jamtara, the new hub, where you are seeing a lot of crime happening from, and any specific reason that why these centers are becoming the hub of cybercrime?
So yeah, I mean, like we were surprised when we saw all the fraud data when we saw on trustchecker.com. So I mean, there was a clear-cut pattern. Okay, if the phone number has like this carrier and like coming from this city, okay, and starting 4 digits are like these. Oh, it's a scammy phone number or spammy phone number, right? So we saw all those cases. Probably like if we see the pattern of the phone numbers which are there, so some of the phone numbers or some of the series of the phone numbers are the ones which are used for scamming people. So what we inferred, me and Shivraj, we inferred because behind the scenes we did some exercise, and what we inferred was probably getting those series of phone numbers is easy peasy. They go and like they don't do like lots of background checks, and they simply get like all those phone numbers, and they start using that. The second thing is, so in fact, like in those regions, people do use like legal ways of like obtaining a phone number of a different person using like Aadhaar and PAN number of a different person. They pay like some XYZ rupees to that person and obtain that specific digital identity, create a phone number, then they use this phone number uh, for like all the wrong reasons. So getting a SIM card is very simple in these areas is what we presume. And second thing is like people are selling their personal identities
Personal
for
information, yes.
to buy the phone numbers and the digital identities, and thereby trying to use that. So the fraud rings are getting created in these specific areas. Uh, so hence all the other things are coming out from there. It's
So
a pan.
people are not realizing the repercussions of selling their PI data. So the people are giving their Aadhaar number or whatever for others to procure the phone number, but they don't understand the long-term repercussions of this.
Can you also specify the areas where such crimes are originating from? The new areas, the new hubs.
So lots of QR code scams are originating from Guwahati and Assam areas. Typically, people are using Reliance Jio phone numbers there. So this is one of the clear-cut things what we have seen over the last 1 month data. So in the second hub, what we have seen is Kolkata. People use lots of Kolkata phone numbers. Here as well, we have seen lots of areas, and Jaipur is also turning out to be one of the fraud ring hub. So these are the three areas what we have seen very significantly over the last 30 days data. And we will be publishing the fraud report every month. So how these fraudsters are creating or changing their ways of operating, and this becomes like very, very important for anyone who is operating in the fintech markets.
So my next question to you was, as you said, how these are changing. So what do you predict in the fraud market, how cybercrime is going to evolve, how it is going to change, and how should law enforcement agencies and financial institutions keep themselves ready to counter it?
Sure. So this keeps on changing, and one thing what we would suggest everyone is to use Trust Checker for sure. So any businesses or consumers can use Trust Checker. So that becomes so because we do like lots of research behind it. We update our scoring methodology as and when the type of fraud changes. So how fraudsters think is a very interesting thing, right? So they always want to be one step ahead to scam people, and for them it's like lots of people are coming online for the first time in India, right? Lots of people are transacting with Google Pay, Phone Pay, or Paytm for the first time in India. So they do get like chunk of people whom they can scam. So out of like 20 phone calls they make, if they scam like 2 or 3 people, that's a great conversion ratio for them. So obviously when like lots of these people are coming online, so it becomes very easy for them to find one single person who can easily, one innocent victim whom they can scam or spam. So with this in mind, so scamsters, I think they play with the fear of the people. Your account will be deactivated, your SIM card will be deactivated. I mean, one of the newest scams, right? So I mean, people use like deep web data to log into Facebook accounts, and they send messages. I got stuck. Send me 100,000 rupees. This is like a newest scam which is happening in. So they try to, social engineering is a way where they try to work on the psychology of the innocent victims. So there might be like more and more ways of like how people scam others, but everything boils down to that specific phone number or email address, because that's where they can receive the money or send money. So if we can find the problem at the root cause and try to solve it, I think whatever branches can be easily be solved. So that's what we are aiming at. We are aiming at the root cause and trying to solve. Law enforcement agencies, yeah, obviously, so they should use more tools like us, and they should create a safe and transparent way for people to come and report for frauds. So for example, right, so there is no centralized database of fraudsters. So in Karnataka they scam someone, so it gets stored in like some place. In Delhi they get scammed, the complaints get recorded in some other place, and like the same person from Delhi can scam someone in Karnataka. So I mean, like, there is no centralized way of looking into the data, right? So I mean, that's what we want to bring change. We want to bring like one centralized place where everything is recorded. Yeah, if government support is there, I think this can scale easily 100x, and like lots of scams will definitely go down in the Indian market, at least with the support from the government, for sure.
Thank you for sharing this information. Is there anything more which both of you would like to add to this?
Yeah. So one simple thing. So I mean, as I said earlier, prevention is better than cure. So use TrustCheckr before you transact with a stranger. Just like it's like one step ahead. Come to TrustCheckr, see the phone number. If there are no fraud instances, you can obviously go ahead and like do it. So thereby like it can save lots of hard-earned money from innocent victims. So that's like one clear-cut takeaway from me. Shivraj, anything else from you?
And especially first-time users, you got to be all the more careful. Even if you are slow in completing the transaction, it is okay. Be careful than being sorry at a later stage.
Thank you, Adip, and thank you, Shivraj, for sharing such crucial information with the 420's audience. And I'm sure this is going to keep them safe and secured while surfing on the web and making transactions. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you. It was
Shashank.
our pleasure.